Imagine building the most addictive game on the planet, and then watching the whole world play it while you earn absolutely nothing. That is not a hypothetical. That is the real story of Alexey Pajitnov, the man who built Tetris, and then spent over a decade watching corporations, governments, and media moguls fight over something they had no right to own. This is not just a video game story. This is a legal thriller with Cold War spies, shady Soviet bureaucrats, a British press baron throwing his weight around, and a Dutch entrepreneur who flew into Moscow uninvited and somehow changed everything. Buckle up, because the story of who really owned Tetris is wilder than any game of it you have ever played. Pajitnov was a researcher at the Soviet Academy of Sciences. On June 6, 1984, on a black and white machine using the most basic graphics imaginable, he created the first prototype of Tetris. His blocks were made of 4 units, so he used the Greek prefix tetra, and the name stuck. The game spread through the computer center like wildfire. Within 2 weeks, it was on every computer in Moscow. What did Pajitnov get paid? Absolutely nothing. Intellectual property did not exist in Soviet Russia. Anything he made belonged to the state. Here is where things go from unfair to completely unhinged. A software salesman named Robert Stein contacted Pajitnov, interpreted a casual reply as acceptance, and sold licensing rights to Tetris to 2 companies, rights he did not have, to a game he did not make, on behalf of a state he did not represent. Peak confidence. Stein then shook on a deal with British media tycoon Robert Maxwell to sell the game for PCs. The American version came in a bright red box with St. Basil's Cathedral on the cover. The subtitle? The Soviet Challenge. Nothing sells a puzzle game like Cold War anxiety. Mirrorsoft then sold rights for home gaming devices to Atari before officially securing them. When the USSR's Technology Export Authority, ELORG, found out, they told Stein he never actually had distribution rights. The Soviet government owned the intellectual property. The whole house of cards was wobbling. And then Nintendo walked in. Nintendo was preparing to launch the Game Boy and wanted Tetris for its simplicity and proven appeal. Enter Henk Rogers, a Dutch-born entrepreneur based in Japan, who decided the only way to get a straight answer was to show up in Moscow himself. He arrived at the ELORG offices uninvited in February 1989, the same day Stein and Mirrorsoft's Kevin Maxwell both made appointments without consulting each other. 3 companies, 1 Soviet government office, 0 coordination. It was like a farce written by the KGB. Here is the question that makes this whole story so gripping. At that exact moment, any one of these 3 parties could have walked out of Moscow with the Game Boy rights. Atari had the money. Mirrorsoft had Robert Maxwell's political muscle. Rogers had a handshake and a dream. Which one would you have bet on? Comment your answer below. Because what happened next is the twist nobody saw coming. Maxwell personally pressured Mikhail Gorbachev to cancel the contract between ELORG and Nintendo. A billionaire media mogul calling in Cold War favors to steal a puzzle game. Remarkable. ELORG refused, citing the financial advantages of their Nintendo deal. On June 15, 1989, Nintendo and Atari began a legal battle in San Francisco. Atari had already produced a staggering number of cartridges. This was an all-or-nothing bet. The judge granted all video game rights to Nintendo. Atari's 100,000 cartridges were worthless. Mirrorsoft collapsed. And through all of it, Pajitnov had yet to receive a single cent. Tetris and the Game Boy became inseparable, selling over 35 million copies. The creator of the most bundled game in history watched from the sidelines. But the story finally turns. With Rogers' help, Pajitnov left Moscow for Seattle in 1991. In 1996, 12 years after he created Tetris, he reclaimed ownership of the rights and founded the Tetris company alongside Rogers. The 10-year deal with the Soviet Academy had expired. The USSR itself had dissolved. The man who built it all on a black and white computer in a Moscow research lab finally owned his own creation. When asked about his royalties in 2019, Pajitnov simply said, "They've been fine so far." Understated. Brilliant. Absolutely earned. The blocks fell. He just had to wait for them to line up. If you want more stories where history, law, and pop culture collide in gloriously chaotic ways, hit subscribe, because we are just getting started. And if you think Tetris has the wildest IP story in gaming, drop a comment, because trust us, there are contenders.